We're going to solve your problems tonight. Anyone else have any problems? To see the hands of people with problems. See the hands of people who tell lies all day. The reason that brought a smile to the face of some of you is because you know that it's true. And it didn't bring a smile to some of you because you couldn't smile if you got $1 million. And we'll talk about that tonight, too. You know, it's a good thing for all of you that there is an intelligence higher than yours. Aren't you grateful? Huh? Or don't you suspect yet that there's an intelligence higher than yours? You think you know everything. You insist that the way you're now thinking and reacting with all that agitation, you think that is not only the superior course, but the only course, which proves you don't know an alternative. You're living out what you have. You're living out what you are. You're living out what you call the whole story. Only a very suspicious man or a woman can see that he's trapped by his own limitations, which he is very fond of, she's very fond of, because no effort is required to stay within your limitations. To think the same thoughts, to have the same angry reactions, to deliberately, now you listen to this and see if it happened to you today, and it's happened to you 1,000 times over the last few years. See if you can see yourself doing what I'm going to describe to you. The man in the car in back of you comes a little close when you have to slow down for good reason, and he just keeps coming fast. He doesn't hit you. Finally you turn somewhere and get out of his way. You're so grateful to that man. You know why? Because for the next 3 miles, you'll have somewhere to hide. You'll have some enclosure. You know what that enclosure is? Your imaginary scene of violence in which you're screaming at him. Couldn't you see my taillight go up when I had to slow down? Couldn't you see I couldn't get out of your way? And I looked at you through the rear mirror, and you kept hounding me, getting right up closer, 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 till you almost hit me. And you threatened me with that big monster of a 5,000-pound car for the next 3 miles until you get distracted by wanting a pop or a sandwich. You're marvelously engrossed in your self-induced drama. Burning, right? And you're driving the car like that, you're going to get into an accident, really, just by letting that scene take you over. Now, if you have any sense at all, you will catch yourself the instant you see yourself getting carried away emotionally, violently, dramatically, hatefully. Those incidents happen 1,000 times a day, whether in the car, at the home, or the office, wherever. They happen all the time, and you listen to me. You are just looking for an excuse to go into your mental movie, or you're telling him off, or you're having an argument. But of course, you're always in the right, and he's always in the wrong. Let me tell you what happened in that particular incident where you went wrong, among other ways. There was a right fear, which is the fear of the physical body getting injured or destroyed. When that big car kept coming after you, when you had to slow down, he could see you had to slow down, but he kept coming, kept coming. Your physical body, your life here on earth, did feel itself in danger. And that's right, that's okay. You must have that in order to preserve your physical body. If you didn't, we'd all walk out in the street and get killed. That part was legitimate. But you're not able to separate legitimate fear, to save the body. You're not able to separate that from what creeps in unseeingly, unknowingly by you, to add to it so that you can become you. I'm telling you, you could have an incident where your life could come within one fraction of a second of being snuffed out by a car. And you would have natural physical fear. But when the incident was over, from pure thought, you would know that that man was a madman, a maniac, keep coming close to you like that and threatening you and almost killing you. You could see that happen, but because you're awake and you're not thinking from your ego self anymore, you would not go into a false move of any kind. You wouldn't hate him. You wouldn't set up a dramatic scene in which you were the poor innocent victim. You see, this is a typical example of where we'll take one thing and make a whole dramatic World War II out of it. We're looking for incidents and excuses where we can make ourselves, get this, the victim of all those persecuting people out there. But it is quite possible if you're awake. That's the whole story. Where you're alert driving that car and you see everything that happens. You're looking in the rear of your mirror, you're looking at the car ahead, and you sense there's a danger to you and to the car, and you get out of the way. But when the physical danger is over, that is the end of it. It doesn't happen with very many people. It's too marvelous an opportunity for you to keep your sickness going. It's too marvelous an opportunity for you to go into a dramatic production, for you to feel persecuted, for you to burn yourself up. Can you remember what I just said, so that the next time, whether it's a large incident like that one or maybe a smaller one, you can watch yourself getting ready to slip, to fall, to lapse in your awareness of yourself. Because once the ball starts rolling and you start to get kidnapped by these foreign forces, once they get you firmly, you're gone. Then you'll have to do what we discussed before. Go through it until you can shake yourself awake maybe 3 miles later. And you didn't even know you traveled those 3 miles. You stopped for 3 signals. You stopped at 8 boulevard stops. You made a left turn. You made 5 right turns. You went down to 30 miles an hour. You went up to 50 miles an hour. And 3 miles later, you don't remember doing one of those things. Because your mind was fixed on that incident and enjoying burning yourself up. So where have you been all day long? Seated here right now, you may not understand at all what I'm talking about, because you don't know that you have been kidnapped all day long. In this class, where we slow down, we put our arms on the chair or in your lap and relax our mouth. Take a deep breath. That slowing down can be the end of the 3 miles, where you can see where you've been all day. And the waste is dreadful. All that nervous tension, which at the time seemed so necessary to do, so valuable. Since when is it necessary to wreck your life? But people who are wrecking their life never call it that. They can't even stand apart in seeing what's happening, so how can they analyze it properly? And I'll tell you a story that will summarize everything that Chuck and Betty talked about, because they were connected, whether they seem to be or not. There was a teacher teaching a class like this, class of inner development. And he said many things preliminary. He was telling people how they had wrong aims in life, how they had nothing really valuable, how they were walking in their sleep. And after talking for a while, he said, now there's one lesson that I've been trying to get over to you, trying to bring into every meeting for the last 2 or 3 months, without identifying the type of lesson it was. But I've been bringing it in every meeting in order to make you aware of a certain mistake you're making. And it takes a long time and a lot of hard work for you to see it, and I'm aware of that. This is why I've been working subtly with you, giving you a primary lesson and then a secondary one over the last 2 or 3 months. And the time has come for me to bring the lesson out into the open and identify it for you, so you can begin to see the cause of all your anxiety, the cause of all your talkativeness, the cause of all your petty little plans that are taking you nowhere, the cause of all your seeking for security that doesn't keep you secure at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the class, the teacher said, we're certainly going to do something different tonight, because this is the way you're going to learn, by doing this different project, which I'm now going to tell you what to do. Please follow me, the teacher said, out to the parking lot where your cars are, and follow me. I'm going to take the lead in my car, and all of you follow me. And by the way, the teacher added, remember now, you're going to drive carefully, you're going to drive consciously, you're going to be aware of what you're doing. When you all leave here, you're going to watch the other driver heading for the street. Watch whether he's going to wave you on. If not, one of you make the decision to either wave him on, because there's only one driveway to exit out there. I want you even to drive with a sense of alertness. Watch the traffic. Fine, so the teacher got out of his chair and went out to the parking lot, started his car and led the way, and all of them followed him. And they drove for a short distance down to business part of town, commercial part of town, entertainment part of town. And eventually pulled up in a big parking lot, and there was glittering lights. Major boulevard there. And got out of the car and walked around, and all of a sudden they realized where they were. They didn't understand what they were doing there, but they knew where they were, and where they were was at a wax museum. And the teacher said, fine, come on in and look around. You'll get the lesson. You'll see. Be patient. You'll see what I'm talking about. So they went on in. Marvelous, enormous building. You know what a wax museum is. Hundreds, thousands, couple thousand figures of famous people, infamous people from history, some living, some not living, famous actors, actresses. The teacher said, now I want you to walk around. Take your time, enjoy yourself. Nothing matter with enjoying yourself. Matter of fact, this is part of the lesson to learn to enjoy your life in the proper way. Most of you don't enjoy yourself. You're too much concerned with yourself to enjoy yourself. So walk around alertly, and when we're all through, we'll stay here an hour or two, plenty of time to look everything over. We're going back to classroom. I'm going to ask you a question. Hopefully it will drive the lesson home. So they wandered around, and it was quite interesting. There was wax figures of famous, beautiful actresses, and of Jack the Ripper, and Benedict Arnold, and George Washington, Julius Caesar. Famous, infamous people of history and of the present time. So they wandered around, wondering what it was all about, because this is quite a unique approach to teaching the inner life. But they enjoyed themselves. Finally, the teacher called them on back. Okay, again now, don't forget, you're supposed to drive alertly back. Watch signals, watch for policemen. Keep your distance from the car in front of you. See, you always forget. Did you ever try dressing consciously, for example? Did you ever try eating consciously, for example? You ever try talking consciously, for example? So they got in their car and all went back to the classroom. They settled down. It took them a little time to settle down because being people who weren't awake, when they sat down, they wandered around a little bit in the chair, and they looked at their books, and they wondered what, they set it down there. They wasted a lot of time even settling down, but the teacher knew that, and he was very patient with them. Finally, they all settled down, and the teacher said, well, do you have any idea what the lesson might be, what this is all about? And one student raised his hand. He said, well, I wonder if it could be that you're trying to tell us that we're not who we think we are. Maybe some of us think they're a great hero of history or a beautiful actress or something. Instead, we're not. We're one of the villains. Maybe we're a psychological sniper like Lee Harvey Oswald, or maybe we're a traitor like Quisling. Maybe you're trying to tell us that we're not who we think we are. Maybe we're labeling ourselves as being healthy and pleasant people. Labeling ourselves as being serious students. We're not at all. So they went back and forth and had a nice discussion for a while. And the teacher listened patiently. And he finally said, I see you didn't understand the lesson at all. However, maybe you will now that I explain it to you. You've had the visual lesson out there at the Wax Museum. And now let me explain something to you. Are you listening? He said. This is the problem. You were always describing yourself. And when you describe yourself, you must absolutely act from that description. The description gives rise to the action. Now look. Remember all those hundreds of figures down there? All those women, all those men, all those beautiful women, all those terrible men, all those heroes, all those heroines, all those traitors, all those great men of history. I know what happened when you walked into that wax museum. You immediately identified with certain ones of them. You immediately thought you resembled this man or that woman, or at least you hoped you did. Their qualities, or even their villainous qualities. Maybe you admired those. What I'm trying to tell you is this. You are not your descriptions at all. There's no need. There's no need to describe yourself, to tell yourself the kind of a person you are, which you are now doing. And listen to me. You don't know, first of all, you don't know you're doing this, and this is what I'm trying to get through to you. Because you have never watched your thought processes. You're sound asleep. You don't see how you alternate calling yourself a quisling, a betrayer, in other words. You call yourself that 1 minute, and the next minute you're George Washington. Or you're Louis Pasteur, or a great scientist, or whatever. You don't know that your intellect is always creating descriptions of you which you take as real, and you operate from them. Now do you understand why you're so contradictory? Now do you understand why you're so scared? Because you not only have these descriptions, but because they're unreal, because they're simply the movement of thought. One way in which thought operates, you change who you are every few minutes. The opposite of what you are 1 minute, and the opposite the next. Which leaves you very much confused. There's no place to rest. Now I'll tell you again. You're not any of those people down there at that wax museum. Not only are you not them, but you don't have to be them. Because, ladies, because, gentlemen, you can be who you really are. And when you know who you really are, there'll be no naming at all. There'll be no words. There'll be no description. But look, I have to tell you. See, I'm telling you this, but you don't understand me because you don't understand yourself. You're not making a connection between what I'm explaining to you and what's happening inside you all day long. You don't know, for example, when a car comes up fast in back of you, and you have to slow down, and you're kind of worried that he's going to come and crash in back of you. And then when the crisis is over and you turn away and you're on the free and open road again, you don't know that a description charged with emotion, with great feeling, and with great false pleasure takes you over. You immediately go into a description. Can you name the description? Let's see if you can. We got a long list. First of all, I am the innocent victim of someone else. Secondly, I'm a person who has the right to scream at another person. Third, this is the way it's always been. Other people are always opposing me, always putting me into a hazardous position, and on and on. Now let me tell you, I'm talking to you now, this audience here in Boulder City now. What do you suppose would happen to you throughout the day if you didn't live from various descriptions of yourself? Suppose you understood, I'm putting it to you, suppose you understood everything I'm talking about and you didn't live from descriptions which tell you how to behave 1 minute and then one way toward this man, and then next minute another way toward this man, and the third way. How would you live your life? Of course, you have no answer to that, because you have never lived a life that way. You've lived a completely self-centered life. And should I tell you now, it might save you. It might save you from years of misery. This self-centered life, this self-descriptive life, which creates acts according to the self-description, this self-centered life has no interest in anything except maintaining itself as it is. The beauty of cursing someone else. The insane beauty of being a victim of the world. The insanity of seeing yourself as inferior, of being a traitor, as being tricky. Oh, you've been tricky all your life, haven't you? This is your description. I'm telling you, this is one description. You've been tricky all your life. Can you see beyond that tonight? Look, all of you, without exception. Without exception. You've been a little sneak all your life, huh? Right? Right? I told you that wax figure in the museum of the snake who betrays, who grabs and runs, isn't you at all. Why do you insist on calling yourself that? Well, the reason you do that, the reason you condemn yourself, because you don't know what else to do. And of course you don't know what else to do. It's been a lifelong habit. And you think, you're not quite sure whether it's your friend, but you don't have anything else to turn to. We're here to discover that there is an alternative to this kind of one description following another, and they're all the same. I don't care how nobly you describe yourself, how good you feel when you do a good deed for someone else, or how bad you feel. They're all false. Every single one of them created by an intellect that has gone mad. An unevolved mind that doesn't understand anything above its own low level. Therefore, it loves its own self, its own present operation. And it is not going to make any effort to rise above itself. So something else is going to have to do that. Fortunately for us, a part of us can understand what we've been talking about tonight and think about it and wonder at it. If I'm neither good nor bad, if I'm not even the snake, if I'm not even the snake that I've called myself all these years, what am I? See what you said? If I'm not that, then what am I? See? Why don't you stop? Why don't you say, all right, I heard the lesson that I'm not any of these figures in the Wax Museum. Neither the heroes nor the villains. No description at all fits me. Why don't I stop right there instead of saying, well, what one does? If you do that, if you pause, if you slow down, you'll begin to see where we've gone wrong. Where we've fallen into the trap of saying, if it's not this, then it must be that. If you can see your mind doing this, you will for the first time suspect that the answer to your personal problems and to all human problems is to not indeed not try to think your way out. Indeed, not to try to find an alternative solution to the solution you now have, which is no solution at all. But the mind comes to a stop, and it says, all right, if describing myself in any way at all causes me grief and bewilderment and confusion, if that is true, I'm going to see it happening inside myself till I prove for myself that it's true. All right. Now I've got something very solid to work on. I'm going to watch, for example, anger. I'm going to watch myself all day long, specifically watching the arising of anger of any form in me, whether I call it resentment or irritation. And I'm going to be alert, as I was instructed to do. And the first faint stirring of anger, not in front of other people, because I'm a marvelous actor. I can pretend that I'm not angry, and I can push it down, and I can cover it up with my face. But inwardly, anytime, no matter what I do outwardly, I'm going to watch the arising of my anger and see how it was preceded by a self-description. Then if I can catch that self-description, that I'm this or that kind of a person, one of the people in the Wax Museum, if I catch myself describing myself and see that it was simply an intellectual movement, understand that, and then see there was no reality of myself in back of it, if I can understand that, I will put an end to the automatic mechanical arising of self-descriptions, and thank God, I won't have to act out my anger and burn myself up anymore. It'll be too much for you to see at the start. You won't believe. You won't want to believe, as a matter of fact, that you can get rid of all anger. Every bit of it. Because you'll see that the self-description includes justification. It includes lying motives. It includes the fiery feeling of life. The self-description precedes all these wrong emotions, all these wrong facial expressions, actions, words. If I pull the foundation out from under the haunted house, it's going to collapse. And it's not going to haunt me anymore. So I'm going to see where I have been describing myself as someone who has his rights. I'm going to see where I describe myself as someone who should succeed. I'm going to see how I describe myself as someone who is sneaky. I'm going to catch that little thought that says, gloom is good. It's good for you to be a gloomy person. The self-description of being depressed, of being sad. And I'm going to see, furthermore, that my pain, my nervousness, agitation, heartache is always connected with the naming. Always connected with a phrase that starts I. Always connected with my egotism. I'm talking with someone in a casual conversation, and I start to tell them about the kind of books I like to read. I like to read travel books. And I tell them I went down the library and I got the most marvelous travel book about Europe. And I'm telling them about all the countries it tells about and the marvelous places to visit. And I repeat over, I just love to read travel books. I go to the library 2 or 3 times a week. I've gone through the section on travel books. I've had some of them out, several. All of a sudden, after boring you for 10 straight minutes, I catch myself and I see what my description was. My life must be terribly empty for me to spend 10 straight minutes convincing you, telling you, describing myself as a person who just loves travel books. I really thought I did. I don't. I'd like to tell you that I do. Do you believe me when I'm telling you that your descriptions are far more ridiculous than that one? Some of you, I vow you could spend 15 minutes telling me the way you like to comb your hair. And may I ask you, do you really think I'm interested in 15 minutes of you telling me how you comb your hair? You're going to have to catch yourself in the act. When you go home tonight and all day tomorrow, I want you to think about self-descriptions and try to remember all the points connected with it, that it's the foundation, that it's the start of your actions, of your words, of your feelings, and that it'll always lead you astray. Maybe take a piece of paper and write down, how am I describing myself right now? That's a good phrase. How am I describing myself right now? You take it in your purse, ladies, gentlemen, put it in your pocket or something. But keep it in front of you, even physically. Put it down on their desk at home or table at home somewhere, so as to remind yourself, how am I describing myself? And then, in talking with other people on the phone, in talking with other people at work, talking to yourself, find out where you're doing exactly what we've talked about tonight, which is telling yourself who you are. And it will divide itself always, of course, into you being a good person 1 minute and a bad person the next minute, right? You're so nice 1 minute and so terrible the next. Simply see that both descriptions are all wrong because they're creating a person who does not exist in reality. You understand that in the last half hour you've been told the solution to every single problem you have? Well, let's see. Let me ask you, all of you here, whether you're more in love with liberty or whether you're more in love with your self-descriptions. Everything depends on your answer to that. Even if you deeply love lying to yourself about who you are, you can yield to the truth that you have heard and that you feel, by the way, in this class. You can yield to that truth, and it can begin to make you love something other than what you presently love, which is your false ideas about yourself. And if you feel a little disturbed about the idea of catching yourself in the act of being false, then let yourself be disturbed and catch yourself being disturbed as part of your overall inner work. I caught myself telling a deliberate lie to someone about something, and it disturbs you. The reason it disturbs you is because you have a description of being an honest person, which you're not. When you're purely a liar, there's no disturbance. That's right. And that's a very profound truth in itself. And it'll start to destroy things that should be destroyed inside you. You are not, and I am not, anything whatever in the Wax Museum. Thank heaven we don't have to be lifeless. We can be vitally alive. We can be really alive. We can know and live from the energy that comes from something much higher than we are. We can begin to see ourselves being moved by energy instead of thinking that we're the individual egotistical source ourselves, because we're not. We're not at all. And that's the beauty of liberty, to know that did you know that you could depend on God? In a very real way, a lot more than the phrase depend on God, depend on truth. This can be your life. Make the decision. Make the decision tonight in favor of yourself instead of against yourself. Isn't that interesting? That tonight you can make a decision in favor of yourself. We'll take a 10-minute break and you'll be called back. Unnecessary thinking blocks right action. Unnecessary thinking blocks right action. And what I'm going to say was inspired by an incident during the break. If someone asks you what time it is, it's astonishingly simple to answer. Someone's asked you what time it is. What you do is raise your left arm. If you have a sweater on, pull back the cuff of it a little bit and look at the watch, and you say, "It's 7:45, sir," or "madam," whichever the case may be. And you put the cuff over, cover the watch up, put your hand down. Isn't that beautiful? Someone asks you what time is it? You raise your hand, you go like, it's 7:45. No complications, no problems, no thinking. Someone says to you at the dinner table, "Sir, may I have the salt shaker?" You look at the table a little bit over, and there's the salt shaker, which you recognize because pepper is black, right? And salt is white, huh? You can tell the difference between black and white, some of you. And you reach over the salt shaker, and you, with a smile on your face, you set the salt shaker. Pure right action, right? Not in this group. I go up to one of you. I say, "Sir, what time is it?" And you stare at me. Look, don't I speak fairly good English? Huh? Come on now. Come on. Right, look, I'm an American. "Sir, what time is it?" I get a blank stare for the second. Let's see, should I rephrase that? What time of day does the watch on your left wrist, not the right, don't look. What time does the watch on your left wrist say? And I'm waiting for him to say, "Well, the long hand is on the center of the short hand." Dodo brains think. Awakened minds act. Please, don't stand and stare at people when they ask you a question. Learn to act intelligently and instantly. Where are you? Someone asks you the time and you stare at them. Someone asks you for the salt and you stare at them. That may be an exaggeration with the watch and with the salt shaker, but not with other things. I ask some of you a question, or you ask questions of each other. A very simple question, really. And you sit back and you put your hand, you have to think it over for 15 minutes. This is because you're living from descriptions of yourself, which we spent a half hour on. When you know who you are, not based on your ordinary mind, you'll be able to act instantly because your understanding is instantaneous. And you'll also have achieved, to one degree or another, that state of inner liberation where your mind isn't churning around with your own little thoughts and your own feelings and your own little eyesights. You're looking at something over there. Well, you can't even hear people when they talk to you. You really can't hear them. You're psychologically deaf. You're not captured by some sight or by some incident experience that happened to you 10 minutes or 10 years before. So that you're able to pay attention when people talk to you. And you're able to grasp instantly and wholly what they're talking about. And if they're asking a practical question, you can respond instantly. If their question is nonsensical, and it might well be, if it's a foolish question, you'll understand that and you will handle it properly. For example, you won't go into a nonsensical answer to their nonsensical question. You'll pass it off, you'll do something with it, but it'll be proper, but you won't lose yourself in the incident. Unnecessary thinking is the same thing as 1, conditioned thinking, 2, dreary thinking, 3, egotistical thinking, 4, acquired thinking based on self-interest, etc. If you are there, truth is not. If you are there, you are suffering from your alienation and separation from truth. Get yourself out of the way and see how much more adequate, to use that mild term, you are to the challenges of the world, to things that come up daily, 1,000 things. And you will see that you are in command of them instead of them becoming in command of you. Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like to be in command of your own life and of the events that come to you from the exterior world? You can be the commander, not the victim, through the teachings that you'll hear in this class. Now, if you new people go away and don't come back to this class, you are sunk. But you won't know you're sunk. You're too far gone to hear what I just said. If you don't come back and come back to every class that you can, you're sunk. You're gone, as you are now. This is a chance to return home to where you can be, to where you should be. But if you're in love with your misery, you won't want this class because it's a threat to your misery. It's a threat to your dullness. It's a threat to your daydreams where you are the center of your own suffering. Let me tell you something, every one of you, and you listen to me. Do you understand that you're going to die alone? Look, you've got things so confused here in this life of yours. You associate with the spouse, with children, with family, with relatives, with associates. And because you're so stupid, you can't see that this is a temporary state. You can't even see that you have an individual, if I may use the word for the first and last time, I hope. You can't even see that you have an individual destiny here on earth. And you think that all these people are going to be with you always. Or, if you lose this wife, you'll get a new one. You'll get a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend. Or you'll get new friends, new associates. Can't you begin to feel your aloneness in a world of 4 billion people? Can't you begin to see your aloneness right in the home where you're with other people, sleeping with other people, talking with other people, living with other people? Don't you know that you are indeed all alone here in this world to work out your own salvation? As long as you don't understand this, that you are alone, as long as you don't understand this, you're going to think that other people can help you. You think that simply being in their company is comfort to you. It's not comfort to you, it's a disaster. But you welcome the disaster because you want to fight with that husband. You want that wife to drink. You want these kids to be rebellious. You want these kids to be rebellious because then you can have something to agonize over. You don't know how insane you are. You don't know that everything you've been looking toward for salvation is destroying you because you have no idea what salvation is, and you never will until you learn to begin to stand all by yourself. So that if you're the only person and the 4 billion here on earth that wants the truth, you would be that one person. And all of you are a long, long ways from that. You're little kids looking up to the teacher or looking up to Mama and Papa, hoping that someone is going to be wiser or stronger than you are. And that's the perfect way to never realize your rightful fate here on earth. You're not going to find it because you're going to think that that other person has strength and wisdom that you don't have. I'm telling you right here and now that he or she doesn't. Or all the comfort that you get from being with other people and all the rewards, they are nothing. They're trash. Too bad. Your values are so mangled, so distorted, so that you don't see real value when it's set right in front of you. For example, when it's set right in front of you in this class. Maybe you're finding it easier to notice your repulsion when in the presence of a mentally sick person, an unpleasant person, an obnoxious person. Maybe it's easier for you to see your repulsion than it is for you to see your false attraction. What happens to you men when you see a pretty girl, especially if she makes a small response to your advance? What happens to you? I'll tell you what happens. You're gone. You've lost yourself. As if you had a self to begin with. Now you're gone into thrillism. Now you're gone into hope. Now you're going into sex fantasies. New ladies. Heaven help you, you meet a man, and you think he's going to be strong and comforting to you, and you're gone. And you never, never, never learn. There's no way I can tell you with words. I do what I can on the level of words. There's no way I can convey to you, using words, that there is a way of life that is 1,000% different, higher, magnificent than the puny, scary life you are now living every day out in that world. You are conquered by the world, all of you. You're afraid of the world. You call yourself a victim and you feel yourself a victim. You get up in the morning and it's always the same story, another day. You know it's going to be another day of defeat. And I'll tell you why it's going to be another day of defeat. Because you won't dare. You won't take these principles with you down to the office. You're out on the highway. No human being ever changes himself in a fundamental way, which is meaningless to you because you've never done it. No human being ever changes himself in a fundamental way until he is aware of his shocking condition inside, and then is aware of the second shock from seeing it. And you'll be numb, absolutely numb, if you look inside yourself and see what you're really like. See how childish you are. What a good actress and actor you are. If you see how your whole life isn't lived from yourself at all, but it's lived from your fantasies. It's lived from your contrived thoughts. It's lived from your desires of how you want the world to be for, of course, for your sake. And you live in very foolish hope that someday the world is going to be kind enough to you to bend to your desires. You're quite sure, aren't you? Sure in quote marks. You're quite sure that if that person or that circumstance or that residence or whatever, if that exterior thing changes, that you will feel different. You may not even be aware that this is what you're counting on, for something out there to change. And so you hope for it, and you play little tricks to try to make it come true. And you get very angry, don't you, that it doesn't. And you look around for someone to hate, for someone to blame. And when you get tired of that little game, you look for a corner to hide in, to break down and cry. You're quite welcome, all of you, to leave this class when you leave and go back to the world you came from. You're quite welcome to go back to the madhouse. God himself can't force you to do otherwise. You do have a choice. You can go back to the world, and you can try to forget what you've heard here tonight, but you won't succeed. You will never succeed. None of you will ever succeed in forgetting what you will hear here tonight and what you've already heard. It's impossible. What you can do is push it way, 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 way down inside somewhere and cover it up. Cover it up with your usual quota of insanities and pretenses and bitterness and fear. Do you understand why I'm talking this way? If you don't, I'll explain it to you. I'm talking this way in order to help you. I'm talking this way because you have one chance while you're still alive in the physical body. You have one chance to achieve this inner transformation, which again, I repeat, you know nothing about, but I have to use words to convey it to you as best as possible, using words. You have one chance to begin the process of changing yourself in a way which you can't imagine now. You can't think about it. You can't plan it even. You can't prophesy it. Because this change we're talking about has to do with the ending of your usual thought processes, or your usual hopes, which you don't even understand those. It has to do with you standing all alone in a world of 4 billion people and never, never, never feeling the slightest ounce of isolation, of loneliness, of apartness, which you now fear, which you now live in. You're isolated, all of you. And you always do the wrong thing to end the isolation. You go toward another person or another event or another activity which has the same kind of sickness that you have. And so you simply mingle with another group or another person who's just as sick as you are, and you say to each other silently, let's cooperate in covering up each other's miseries. And the first place we can start is by calling it non-misery, by calling it getting married, by calling it going to the party, by calling it having a nice relationship. You fill in your own blanks. Probably fill them in about your future career or your plans for travel. Have you never noticed how nervous you are about all those marvelous plans you had for yourself? Wouldn't it be a clue to you to begin to see that any plan that includes nervousness can't be very solid? And it can't take you anywhere except from one corner of nervousness to the next corner, and the next one, and the next one. So that you're not making any progress at all, but simply going around the whole city, wandering around, looking for something, hoping for someone or something to come along, and knowing deep down in your heart that it isn't going to happen. And if you don't know that, I will tell you that nothing good will happen to you. See, look. Please understand this. It'll save you years of worry. All you have to give to yourself is a basket of lies. You have nothing whatever. Look, you're going to reach into that basket of lies and delusions and pull something out of there that's going to help you, that's going to make you feel good, that's going to change things. But you won't see that because you still think that there's something good about you. I'm telling you, there's nothing good about anyone in this room, including myself. There's nothing good about what we call ourselves, what we think we are. You still think that you exist as a person who can be good or bad, and so you reach into the basket and say, and I'll tell you, I've got all these plans for the future financially, marriage or unmarriage or whatever. I've got all these plans, and certainly, if these plans come from my brilliant mind, they'll certainly lead me somewhere. You haven't noticed at your age? I'm looking around. Some of you aren't young anymore. And even you young people that apply to you. Haven't you noticed that you're not going anywhere at all? Haven't you noticed that you're just getting older without getting any smarter? Haven't you noticed the frustrations inside of you and the terror that says this? I guess this is all there is. So I'd better just sit back and make the most of it with what I have. And this is what people do. You sit back with your complaints, with your defenses. May I tell you something? When I talk to you, and when I see your faces, as I'm doing right now, and I'm studying every one of you that I can see from here, I understand that every false expression on your face in this room right now, which number of you have, every false gesture, even a false position, if you're sitting by that, I can pull out of that what's happening inside of you. Just a little, you don't know how you're giving yourself away, something like that. I want to tell you something. For you to be understood as you are understood in this class. For you to be understood is not something that is going to hurt you, as you now believe, which is why you resist, but is something that's going to shatter and bang against that armor. You know what an armor plate is? The knights of old is armor plate up. You've got your armor plates up in different ways, both internally and externally. And you've got this armor up, but you don't know you have it. I'm telling you, you don't see yourself as you are seated right here and now and as you go through your day. But you've got this armor up, and you're telling the whole world, you come at me and I'm going to get you with this armor. I'm going to stop you with that. And you've got your sword over here too, don't you? So that when the offense comes against you and you stop it, you can strike out with a sarcastic remark, for example. I want to tell you, whether you can understand it or not, that if you can begin right tonight, right here tonight, at 10 minutes after 7, to take this armor in this hand and this sword in this hand, and just lower them 1 inch tonight. That's all. That's all that's asked for. You're never asked to do more than you can do. But you can do, what you can do is to lower them 1 inch. Now, what does that mean? It means to listen very attentively to what you're hearing. To not take what you're hearing and get all nervous and excited about it and want to twist it. You need to sit back and be in awe. To be in wonderment at what you're hearing. Well, I've never heard anything like this before. The meetings I used to go to, they would say that we're all God's children and all will come out well. And they flattered me. And they talked a lot about great powers who are going to do things for me. And they were all so sweet and so gentle. But this is different. And you know why it's different? Because truth, because it does include love. Because truth is love. God is love. That's an accurate statement. Because it is. It doesn't deceive you. It doesn't keep you where you are by telling you more of the kind of lies you've been hearing all your life. So when you hear the truth for the first time, it seems to be the enemy. And you'll get afraid and you put the armor up and you say, no more of that. I'm not coming back to any more classes. Or even now, as I'm sitting and talking to you, to one degree or another, all of you in this class are holding up the armor. Some more or less degree. If you drop the armor, that simply means the same thing as dropping. Listen to this and see if this isn't a nice thing to hear. It means the dropping of everything that you have taken as self-protective, which is really self-destructive. All right? Okay. You don't think so? What was your day like today? Now don't you come in this room and tell me lies. I know what it was like. I know what your day was like, and some of you I've never seen before, but I know what your day was like. Because I saw you walk into that room. I see you sitting out here now. Your day was one of defeat. You spent all day looking for one little tiny battle to win so that you could feel good and think that that was the conquest that's going to keep you going to the rest of the night. Remember that remark you made to someone else and got the good feeling from it? Remember that insane stream of words that poured out from either your mind or your mouth and gave you a strange sort of thrill, That's what you call your victory. Look, don't you think we understand that for every insanity that's observable in the physical movements or in the words, don't you think we know that during the day that 1,000 insanities go on mentally and emotionally? If we can start to bring that sort of thing out in this class and talk about it, discuss it scientifically, not judgmentally, not condemning anyone for being insane, which you are, but to do it very scientifically. Can't you see what a change it could begin to make? You want to be happy? Huh? You don't even know what it is. And you say you want to be happy. You don't even know what it is. Can you see what a change it would begin to make in you? You would begin to understand how your machine works. And this brings us always back to the basic principle of self-knowledge, of knowledge and of self-knowledge. Think for a minute of knowledge. What's knowledge? What's a fact? Let's say you know something about someone else. You know a secret about them, huh? That's a fact. That's a knowledge. That's knowledge. You know something about another person. You know a secret about knowledge. What's self-knowledge? Listen to this and see how you can see the difference in the two. This is the self-knowledge that changes us inwardly. I know a secret about that person. I know something about him. Maybe your wife or husband, children, something. Can't you see the false thrill? Can't you see the idea of possible revenge? Can't you see what you are wrongly doing with this knowledge about that other person? That is self-knowledge. The knowledge is you know a secret about him, a deep secret that nobody else knows. You know. Self-knowledge means you see that you get a thrill out of having this inner insight into this person that no one else knows about. Can you see the difference? All right. Then it's self-knowledge we want, because if I can begin to observe how I get great pleasure, see, out of seeing the other person's sin or his shortcoming or how he was in jail 10 years ago somewhere else, I know something about that person, and self-knowledge would be that I compare myself with him. I've never been to jail, therefore I'm superior to that person whose secret I know. That is the kind of self-knowledge that you're going to have to acquire in order to get rid of every false feeling, every sense of superiority, every sense of condemnation of another person. Why are you doing it? For the other person? You're doing it first for yourself. That's the order it has to come into. Because if you are still getting a false pleasure out of knowing something about another person, if you're getting a false pleasure out of it, that is called insanity. That is called separating yourself from the other person, thereby thinking that you are different from he is, therefore superior. And of course, when it's reversed, you never notice how many things that maybe he did a lot of things right and you did a lot of things wrong, but you don't pay any attention to those. We only do those things that put us in the right light, in the better light. Then I should tell you that there's a stage far, far higher than the one we just talked about. And see how well you can comprehend this. Having seen through self-knowledge all the wrong movements that go on inside us, having seen how they tear us apart, and having seen what a very peculiar fondness we have for criticizing other people, for being jealous of them, for being sarcastic toward them, for causing them pain. Having seen the terribleness of our inner state, that could lead you to learn to listen to an advanced lesson in this class, which will lead you to this leap that we've talked so much about, where you're willing to no longer be anyone at all that has an opposite out there in the world. So that you could even have the fact stored in memory that all these other people did all these terrible things, but you don't feed on it as gossip. You don't get a thrill out of it. Because you have no need to. You've arrived at a state where your supreme thrill is to walk all by yourself, with other people or without them. I said walk all by yourself, with other people or without them. Walk within yourself, knowing, absolutely knowing that you're no longer a part of that former self. All these very odd, weird little inhabitants that took over and lived in your psychic system, in your mind, in your feelings, in your body, even lived in your body. But all these weird little inhabitants have been chased out. Not by you. Not by you, because that's what you or I, that's what we were. That's all I was. Can you agree within yourself? You don't necessarily have to nod your head. Can you agree within yourself right now that you have all these weird little people inside you jumping up, causing you to say certain impulsive things, to make you turn your head while you're talking with someone and make a cute remark? Or to be depressed, or to be hateful, or to want to impress other people, or want to be noticed by other people, be the center of attention. Haven't you noticed a person inside of you that wants to talk about himself all the time, and does in secret all the time? If you can do that, that is the beginning of knowledge and self-knowledge. You'll come to a stage in which when you see yourself being, let's say, being greedy for wealth. You want to acquire a new home, a new car, lots of money, big bank account, pretty rings on your finger, and other such stupidities. You can catch yourself in this acquisitive state inside you. That would be knowledge. I didn't know how greedy I was. I didn't know how I wanted all these fine things in life. Then you go into self-knowledge and say, I can hardly believe it, but I believe it because I see it. I see that my greed to pick up an extra $5, an extra $1,000, to get a lot of money, I can see how that makes me lie to other people. I can see how it makes me deceive them in order to get this $5 or $1,000. In short, I can see how this one negative trait inside me, this one trait alone, makes me an evil person, and I'm about to faint at what I see next. I couldn't believe it unless I'd tracked this down this far. And I didn't want to track it down, but I had to, because life wasn't worth living the way it was. I see that this acquisitiveness I have, demanding a raise every 6 months, and if you don't give me a raise, I'm going on strike. I'm going to cause all the trouble I can in this world if you don't give me another $5 a week. My viciousness, my insanity in demanding more money is driving me crazy. Not enough yet. Oh no, you've just begun. If you can take the next one, you'll make it. I'll guarantee you, you'll make it outside of your sickness, which you all are. You finally make the statement. You take in a deep breath, and you say to yourself, not only am I an insane human being, but that is my sole devotion in life. My sole passion in life was to be insane. And I've got evidence of it, perfect evidence, that all I wanted was to be in love with my insanity. That's all I ever had. Look, I get what I asked for. I asked for this madness, and I got it. But 20 years ago, you couldn't have told me this. 10 years, you couldn't have told me this. 5 years ago, if I'd come to this class and you said this, I would have sat back and sneered at you. And now I understand why. Because I was afraid. Because you were telling me the truth about myself, and that's the last thing I wanted to hear. And still, there's a very, very large part of me that doesn't want to hear the truth. But I have self-knowledge now, a little bit. And I know, it is clear to me that I don't want the truth. It's clear to me how much of me is still in this raging state and takes the greatest of pleasure in being a delirious human being. And how strange I didn't see one other feature about my madness. I didn't see that wherever it went, it wrecked. Wherever it went, it had to try to impose itself on other people and on myself too. The madness went out and it went inside. Being madness, how do you expect an insane mind to behave sanely? It can pretend, it can use words to indicate the opposite, and can put on the proper mask. But I now see that what I was had to go out and try to reproduce more of itself in the outer world in order to feel more comfortable out there with other people who were just as lunatic-y as I was. I know now why when I first came to this class, the first meeting, the first 10 meetings, many, many meetings, I know why I didn't like it. And I know why I wanted to go away. My insanity was very uncomfortable in the presence of sanity. Did you know, by the way, all of you here, and those of you listening to this tape, you know that you're in a sane atmosphere here now? And some of you who are new here tonight, if there are new people, this is almost certainly the first time you have ever been in a sane atmosphere in your life. You see, that caused a little bit of a jolt. When a mind that has no comprehension, has no stability, has only restlessness, nervousness, desires, self-protection, self-assertion. When a mind like that comes into a sane place where your insanity will not be tolerated, and you sense it, don't you? Every one of you knows it. Your insanity right now is crouching. It's going, if I may physically illustrate it, it's going like that. It's in a defensive position. And you know, maybe you know, try to know, and I know that it's doing that right now. It has no chance. But another part of you, part that's beginning to be a little bit sane, you can sit here in this class and watch the defensive part of you do exactly what I just described. You can watch it happening inside you right now as I'm talking to you. And if you're real honest, you'll be able to catch all these parts that have been tormenting you, and you are your own torment, you understand. Nobody else does it to you. You do it to yourself. If you can catch these parts that are tormenting you, catch them as tormentors, you'll go very, very fast inwardly and wanting nothing more to do with them. As we said earlier, you'll see that this right part of you, the light part of you, has nothing in common with them. Oh, and it's so easy to put them away. It's so easy to draw away from them and say, I don't want anything more to do with you. Do you know why it's simple? Because God's work is already done. You don't have to do it. You and I have been trying to save ourselves all these years, haven't we? It hasn't worked. We've understood that. Understood that nothing I can do can save myself. But this knowledge and this self-knowledge begins to understand, all I have to do is sit back, relax, release the light that wants to be released. Excuse me. And watch what's happening to me inside as I'm seated here in this room right now. Watch my little nervous gestures. Watch what I'm saying to myself about what I'm hearing. What are you saying? What have you been saying, all of you? I'm asking you a question. What have you been saying to yourself since the start of the talk? Have you been watching that? Can you see what your reactions have been? I'll tell you, if you had any negative reactions, any hostile reactions, any fearful reactions, then these are imposters. These are parts of your old nature, the nature that wants to keep you just where you are. And if any of you listen to them, and you go out of here and listen to them instead of listening to the truth that's trying to make entrance into your life, if you listen to them, shall I prophesy your future? Oh, I don't have to. You can do it yourself. Your future will be the same as your past. How's that for a horror story to be continued next year? On the other hand, if you're tired of being a phony, the phony that you are, try then to understand this. What you've heard here tonight is said against the parts of you that have been tearing you apart. Not against you, because you don't know who you are. You've taken yourself as being these dark parts. And you don't understand that either. What has been said here tonight is fighting, to use that word deliberately, is fighting for you instead of against you. And even if that isn't clear, you can do one thing. Now let me tell you what all of you here can do. In your present state, most of you, there's not much else you can do, but you must do what you can do at the start. You must come to every single class. I'm telling you, now you listen to me, you have no hope, any of you. You think I'm saying this as a dramatic speech? What I'm telling you is as factual as that wall. You have one hope and one only. But you don't even know this. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you will begin to obey something that is not part of your insanity and say, all right, I'll see. There are parts of me that want nothing to do with coming to every meeting. I wish I hadn't come to the first meeting. Please go away and let me sleep. But it's too late. It is. You've been to one meeting. It's too late. You can come to every meeting, listen, and you will prove to yourself for yourself the truth of everything that we've talked about tonight. And that is what is known as beauty. You'll detect very small changes in yourself at first. But I better warn you, you'll get something, and then we'll have a break. What you will detect in you. Now listen very, very carefully to this, please. You've come here for the first time or for the 10th time or whatever. Darkness doesn't give you up easily. Say your age to yourself, all of you, please. Say your age to yourself. The devil has had you all these years, 20, 60, 80. He's not going to give you up that easy. He's lonely for your company. And being around for many thousands of years, he knows every way to beguile you, to trick you, to keep you trapped into your present life. He will suggest every excuse possible, every reason why you shouldn't come back here. And I'll tell you what to do. You defy that, and you come back in spite of yourself.